powerful do not connect with everyone. They connect with the few who understand the game beneath the conversation, the law beneath the handshake, the silent code beneath every open door. And right now, too many men are still standing outside that world, staring through the glass, wondering why the room never chooses them, wondering why men with less discipline, less intelligence, less substance, somehow sit at tables they cannot even approach. It is not luck. It is not talent. It is not pallant. It is not fate. It is law. There are rules that govern access. Rules that separate the forgettable from the unforgettable. Rules most men never learn because nobody teaches them openly. They are passed in private, practiced in silence, and enforced without mercy. What you are about to hear is not comfort. It is initiation. 13 laws, 13 keys, 13 shifts that change the way you move, speak, wait, and win. Listen closely, because once you see these laws, you will never look at power the same way again. The first law is this: become useful before you become close. Nobody powerful cares about your dreams in the beginning. They do not care about your intentions. They do not care about your potential in its raw form. Potential is cheap. Desire is common. Need is everywhere. What they care about is immediate value. What problem can you solve? What pressure can you reduce? What burden can you lift from their shoulders right now? Most men approach power like beggars dressed as admirers. They want guidance. They want access. They want access. They want favors, they want a shortcut. And the moment that hunger leaks through their voice, their body language, their energy, they disappear. Powerful people are surrounded by takers. Every day, someone wants something from them. Their attention, their name, their money, their their influence, their time. So they become ruthless in filtering out need. That means you must move differently. Stop thinking like a fan. Start thinking like an asset. Do not ask what they can do for you. Ask what unfinished problem in their world you can solve better than the men around them. Study them before you ever approach them. Learn the architecture of their pressure. Understand the bottlenecks in their business, the weaknesses in their system, the things that waste their energy. Then enter their world carrying usefulness, not desire. This is not servitude. This is strategy. When you bring value first, you bypass resistance. You walk through doors that stay locked to the desperate. The weak ask for attention. The strategic create reasons to be remembered. And powerful people remember one kind of man above all others, the man who made life easier. That is where access begins. Not with charm, not with flattery, with function. Usefulness is the first currency in the economy of influence. Spend it well, and the room begins to shift around you. The second law is brutal because it goes against how most men were raised. Never reveal your full hand. The moment people know everything about you, your power starts bleeding out. Mystery is not distance for the sake of distance. Mystery is protection. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is armor. Most men talk too much because they think openness creates connection. They reveal their plans, their ambitions, their wounds, their strategy, their frustration, their fear. Sometimes nobody even asked. They pour themselves out in the name of authenticity, thinking honesty alone will build trust. In ordinary life, that may earn sympathy. In the world of power, it makes you easy to read, easy to predict, and therefore easy to control. The powerful never hand you the full map. They let you see what serves them, nothing more. This is not always deception. Often it is discipline. Every detail you reveal becomes potential leverage in someone else's hands. Your ambitions can be blocked. Your doubts can be exploited. Your next move can be anticipated before you make it. So guard your inner world. Stop narrating your every intention. Stop over-explaining. Stop making yourself emotionally available to people who have not earned access to your mind. Speak in outlines, not blueprints. When people probe too deeply, redirect. When they expect confession, offer composure. Let them leave with questions. Let them wonder what you are building. Let them underestimate how much you see. Because a man who cannot be fully decoded cannot be fully manipulated. And the truth is simple. People are drawn to what they cannot completely possess. They respect what remains beyond their reach. The loudest man in the room is almost never the most powerful. The most powerful is usually the one saying the least, revealing the least, learning the most. Become that man. The third law, enter through the side door. The front door is obvious. That is why it is guarded. Everybody rushes there. Everybody introduces themselves the same way. Everybody asks for the same meeting, the same opportunity, the same chance. And because everyone moves through the front, everyone is treated like the crowd, rejected, delayed, ignored, forgotten. The strategic man does not force the obvious entrance. He studies the structure. He looks for the side door. Sometimes it is the assistant. Sometimes it is the quiet business partner nobody notices. Sometimes it is a mutual acquaintance, a private event, a shared circle, a charity board, an invitation-only dinner, where cameras are absent and real alliances are formed in whispers instead of headlines. Access rarely lives where the crowd is looking. It lives in the margins, in the unseen pathways, in the peripheral relationships that insiders trust. So map their world. Learn who they listen to when the public is gone. Learn who protects their schedule, who shapes their impressions, who influences them before they ever enter the room. Build credibility there first. Let your name travel inward before your presence does. This is patience with teeth. The desperate man bangs on the gate. The strategic man becomes familiar to the people behind it. By the time he arrives, he is not a stranger. He is already a name, already a signal, already a presence that has been softly approved by the people power trusts. That is how walls are bypassed, not with force, with finesse, not with noise, with positioning. And if this kind of thinking already feels sharper than the usual surface-level advice, subscribe now and stay close to this channel, because most men will spend years learning these lessons the hard way, through humiliation, exclusion, and regret. You do not have to. The fourth law, mirror their world, not your own. This is where many men fail without even realizing it. They walk into rooms of influence still trapped inside their own lens, their own story, their own preferences, their own emotional frame. Then they wonder why connection never lands. But powerful people, like all people, live inside their own reality, their own pressures, their own values, their own language. If you want to connect with them, you cannot demand that they step into your world first. You must prove you can move inside theirs. This is not weakness. This is calibration. Study how they speak. Notice the rhythm of their words, the ideas they return to, the things that make them lean in, the assumptions they make without saying them out loud, the subjects they care about, the standards they admire, the emotional tone they respond to. Then adjust. When you mirror someone skillfully, you create a bond below conscious awareness. They feel understood before they can explain why. They feel ease in your presence because your energy does not clash with their frame. It aligns with it. That is not fake. That is intelligent. People trust what feels familiar. They trust reflections of their own worldview. The powerful are no exception. If they see you as socially clumsy, emotionally miscalibrated, or blind to their reality, you become an outsider instantly. But if you understand their pace, their priorities, and their code, you stop feeling like an intruder. You start feeling like someone who belongs. There is an art to this. Obvious mirroring looks manipulative. Refined mirroring feels natural. It is not mimicry. It is resonance. You do not erase yourself. You make yourself legible in their language. The rigid man stays trapped below. The adaptable man rises. The fifth law, master selective availability. This one cuts deep because it exposes a weakness many men mistake for loyalty. The more available you are, the less valuable you become. That is not cruelty. That is human psychology. People chase what feels scarce. They protect what feels limited. They overlook what is always present. Yet most men still believe constant access builds importance, so they answer immediately. They show up every time. They make themselves endlessly reachable, endlessly flexible, endlessly easy to claim. And they think this proves dedication. It usually proves the opposite. It suggests that your time is not in demand, that your life has no real weight pulling against theirs, that your attention can be summoned without cost. And once that message is received, your value starts collapsing in silence. Powerful people notice this faster than anyone. Scarcity creates respect. Boundaries create gravity. Space creates tension. Selective availability does not mean childish games. It does not mean being cold for effect. It means your presence is intentional. Your time is directed. Your access is not automatic. You do not always respond at once. You do not always appear on command. You do not train people to expect unlimited entry into your attention. Sometimes you delay. Sometimes you decline. Sometimes you disappear long enough for your absence to create shape, and that is when the dynamic shifts. Because when you are not constantly there, people begin to register the weight of your presence. They feel the difference between access and no access. They stop assuming you. They start noticing you. Most men fear this distance because they are addicted to reassurance. They fear being forgotten. They fear losing the connection. So they stay too available, and in doing so, they destroy the very tension that creates respect. But the disciplined man understands something deeper. Presence has power only when absence is possible. Be warm, but not open-ended. Be reliable, but not endlessly reachable. Be present enough to matter, absent enough to be felt. That rhythm changes everything. The sixth law is simple, ancient, and merciless. Speak less than necessary. Words are weapons, and most men fire them carelessly. They talk to fill silence. They talk to prove intelligence. They talk because silence makes them nervous. And in doing so, they hand over their leverage sentence by sentence. Every unnecessary word reveals something. Your fears, your ego, your need to be liked, your hunger for approval, your lack of discipline. The more you speak, the more pieces of yourself you scatter across the table for other people to study, measure, and use. And the people who understand power never need that many words. Watch them closely. In loud rooms, they are usually the calmest. In tense moments, they are usually the stillest. When everyone else is trying to impress, they are observing. When everyone else is competing for attention, they are letting the room expose itself. That is not passivity, that is control. Silence creates pressure. It forces other people to reveal more than they intended. It makes them uncomfortable. It makes them explain too much. It makes them rush to fill the void while you remain centered. And in that silence, you learn. You see where their confidence breaks. You hear where their motives leak. You notice who needs validation, who fears disapproval, who is trying too hard, who is hiding insecurity behind performance. Most men think dominating a conversation makes them powerful. It usually makes them transparent. The man who speaks the most is often the man with the least internal control. He is not commanding the room. He is begging it to confirm his existence. Do not become that man. Let pauses breathe. Let questions hang. Let people sit in the weight of your restraint. And when you do speak, make it precise. Not more words, better words, sharper words, timed words, words that land once and stay in the room after you are gone. This is the difference between noise and authority, between chatter and presence, between a man who reacts and a man who governs himself. Control your tongue, and you control far more than speech. You control perception. You control energy. You control frame. You control how much of yourself the world gets to touch. The seventh law goes deeper into the darker machinery of human connection. Create mutual enemies. Nothing bonds people faster than a shared threat. Shared pleasure is shallow. Shared struggle is sacred. A common enemy can create trust faster than 100 pleasant conversations because it activates something primal, tribal, ancient. The instinct to unite, to align, to protect, to fight side by side. This does not mean manufacturing chaos. It means understanding that power often organizes itself around opposition. Powerful people are almost always resisting something. A rival, a critic, a culture shift, a market force, a political obstacle, a betrayal, a hidden threat to their position. If you understand what they are against, you understand what they fear losing. And if you genuinely stand in that same battle, the distance between you closes quickly. You are no longer just another stranger seeking access. You become relevant. You become aligned. You become someone standing on the same wall, looking toward the same battlefield. That is where alliances harden. Find out what they oppose. Learn what pressures them. Understand what they consider dangerous, weak, corrosive, foolish, or threatening. Then reveal, naturally, that you see the same danger, that you understand the cost of that enemy, that you are not blind to the same poison they are trying to keep outside the gate. But this law requires discipline, never fake conviction. Powerful people can feel false alignment. They can hear rehearsed loyalty. They can sense when someone is mirroring conflict only to earn favor. And once they see that, trust dies immediately. So be real. Be selective. Choose your alignment carefully. Never create enemies you cannot afford. Never tie yourself to petty grudges. Never turn every disagreement into war. The goal is not to become paranoid. The goal is to understand that shared opposition forges stronger bonds than shallow agreement ever could. A man who laughs with you may still forget you. A man who fought beside you rarely does. The eighth law is where ego destroys the impatient. Never outshine the master. You may be more capable. You may be more disciplined. You may see flaws they miss and solutions they cannot find. But the moment you make a powerful person feel small, you become a threat. And once you become a threat, your talent stops being admired. It starts being targeted. This is one of the hardest laws for ambitious men to accept, because ego wants recognition now. Ego wants applause now. Ego wants the room to know exactly who the sharpest mind is. But power is not given to the loudest display of brilliance. Power is protected by those who already hold it, and those people do not tolerate feeling overshadowed by someone beneath them in the hierarchy. So, learn the deeper move. Let your strength serve their spotlight. Let your ideas arrive in ways that preserve their pride. Let your contribution elevate them rather than expose them. The wise man understands that immediate credit is often a weak trade for long-term position. This is not about becoming invisible forever. It is about surviving long enough to become undeniable. The advisor who humiliates the king does not remain in the palace. The lieutenant who makes the general look foolish does not keep his rank. The strategist who cannot manage another man's ego will keep sabotaging his own future and calling it honesty. Your brilliance does not disappear because you restrain it. It becomes more dangerous, more precise, more usable. You place it where it buys trust instead of triggering insecurity. You solve problems quietly. You strengthen the structure from within. You become essential before you become obvious. And once your value is deeply embedded, once your removal becomes costly, once your reputation has hardened beyond dismissal, then recognition arrives in a different form. Not cheap applause, real influence. Most men ruin that by demanding to be seen too early. Do not lose the throne room because you could not control your vanity. The ninth law turns the whole game upside down. Make others come to you. The one who chases gives away power. The one who is chased holds it. This is true in business, in status, in influence, in almost every human dynamic that matters. The moment you start running after powerful people with visible hunger, you lower your own position. You signal dependence. You announce that they have something you need badly enough to pursue, and from that moment the frame is set. You are beneath, they are above. The disciplined man reverses this. He builds something worth noticing. He sharpens his skill until it creates gravity. He develops results that speak before he does. He becomes known for competence, precision, restraint, and usefulness. He lets his work move ahead of him. He lets his name travel without forcing it. He creates so much value, so much clarity, so much signal that eventually curiosity starts moving in his direction. That is when the dynamic changes. Now they want to know who you are. Now they ask about you. Now your reputation arrives before your introduction. Now the invitation feels natural because you are no longer seeking entry through desperation. You are being pulled in by consequence. This law demands faith in delayed reward. It demands patience. It demands that you stop confusing motion with progress. Chasing is movement, yes, but it is often low-value movement. The strategic man spends that energy building magnetism instead. He becomes excellent enough to be discovered. He becomes disciplined enough to wait. He becomes rare enough to be pursued. And that is the position you want, not because it flatters your ego, but because it changes negotiation itself. When they come to you, the terms shift. The posture shifts. The emotional temperature shifts. You are no longer hoping to be chosen. You are deciding how much access to allow. That is power. If you can feel this shift happening in your own mind already, then stay with this channel, because the men who rise are not always the loudest or the luckiest. They are the ones who understand invisible laws and start moving like they were never meant to be common. The 10th law is unforgiving. Guard your reputation with your life, because in the world of power, your name enters the room before you do. Before they hear your voice, they have already heard a version of you. Before they shake your hand, they have already felt the echo of your reputation through whispers, impressions, warnings, and private endorsements. That is the battlefield. Not just reality, but perception. Not just truth, but the story people believe when you are absent. Most men are careless with this. They think reputation is a soft thing. Secondary, cosmetic. They think skill alone will save them. It will not. Skill can open a door, but reputation decides whether you are trusted once you step through it. 1. Reckless association. 1. Public collapse. 1 moment of visible weakness at the wrong time. Sometimes that is enough to stain your name in rooms you have never even entered. So guard it. Guard your habits. Guard your image. Guard the company you keep, the promises you make, the standards you display, and the moments where emotion tries to hijack your judgment. Do not give enemies clean ammunition. Do not let gossip grow without resistance. Do not assume truth wins on its own. It often does not. In the game of influence, lies that spread early are often stronger than truth that arrives late. That is why disciplined men learn to manage perception without becoming fake. They understand that character matters, but they also understand that visible character is what the world reacts to. You may know who you are. That is not enough. They must know what your name stands for. Reliability, precision, restraint, discretion, results. These must cling to you so tightly that even your critics are forced to speak carefully. And when you make mistakes, correct them quickly, quietly if possible, publicly if necessary. Never let a small crack become a permanent identity. The world is lazy. It loves simple labels. Once people reduce you to one failure, one flaw, one rumor, they stop looking deeper. So do not give them that convenience. Build your name like a fortress, stone by stone, choice by choice, conversation by conversation, because once your reputation begins working for you, doors open before you knock. Trust arrives faster. Resistance weakens. Your silence starts carrying weight. Your presence begins speaking without effort. That is when a man becomes difficult to erase. The 11th law is colder, harder, more strategic than pride can tolerate. Never destroy an enemy when you can use him. Weak men think power is revenge. They think strength means crushing everyone who ever opposed them. But destruction is expensive. It wastes energy. It creates debris. It turns useful tension into permanent war. The strategic man sees deeper. He understands that an enemy is not only a threat. Sometimes an enemy is a resource that has not yet been repositioned. A rival knows the terrain. A critic reveals where you are vulnerable. A former opponent often sees angles your admirers will never mention. In some cases, the man who once resisted you can become more useful than the one who praised you from the beginning. Why? Because once converted, he brings knowledge, caution, and often a stronger form of loyalty than the naturally agreeable. This requires emotional discipline most men do not have, because ego wants punishment. Ego wants humiliation. Ego wants the satisfaction of seeing an opponent kneel. But satisfaction is cheap. Utility is priceless. So ask the harder question. Can this person be redirected? Can their ambitions serve your structure? Can their resistance be turned into respect? Can their proximity become an advantage instead of a threat? Sometimes the answer is no. Some enemies must remain outside the gate. Some people are too chaotic, too treacherous, too hungry for sabotage. But many conflicts are not worth permanent destruction. Many opponents can be neutralized more effectively through absorption than attack. That is how real power behaves. It does not always crush. It recruits, it redirects, it turns friction into fuel. To do this, you must detach from personal emotion. Stop viewing every conflict through wounded pride. Start viewing people through strategic possibility. What can they become if aligned correctly? What can they reveal if kept close? What blind spot can they watch if their interest becomes connected to yours? The man who can answer those questions stops wasting potential. He stops fighting every war to the death. He becomes colder, smarter, harder to corner, because he no longer thinks like a man seeking emotional closure. He thinks like a man building lasting leverage. That is rare, and rarity is always respected. The 12th law strips away the final illusion. Appeal to self-interest, never to mercy. This is where most men lose everything without understanding why. They ask from need. They speak from hardship. They hope their sincerity will move someone powerful to help them. They tell long stories. They explain their struggle. They expose their pressure, believing that honesty alone will open a hand or soften a heart. Sometimes it wins sympathy, but sympathy is weak currency. It fades quickly. It rarely builds lasting investment. Power responds to incentives. That is the truth men hate because it sounds cold. But cold truth is better than warm fantasy. Powerful people do not move because your life is difficult. They move because something in the exchange benefits them. Status, profit, relief, efficiency, access, protection, advantage, expansion. Every serious decision passes through that filter. What do I gain? If you cannot answer that before you ask, you are already losing. So reframe everything. Do not present your request as a burden they should carry out of kindness. Present it as an opportunity they would be intelligent to recognize. Show the return. Make the value visible. Make the gain concrete. Make the exchange clean. Do not beg for help. Structure benefit. Do not ask for belief. Offer evidence. Do not center your need. Center their advantage. This is not manipulation. It is respect for how humans actually operate. Even generosity often serves identity, legacy, image, or emotional reward. Self-interest is not always ugly, but it is almost always present. And the man who understands that stops wasting years trying to be rescued by compassion alone. He learns to negotiate, he learns to frame, he learns to build proposals so clear, so useful, so aligned with another person's gain that refusal becomes irrational. That is a different level of power, and that is the level you should operate on. If this shift is sharpening the way you see people, subscribe to the channel and stay in this circle, because most men are still asking the world for mercy, while a smaller, more dangerous few are learning how to speak the language of leverage. The 13th law is the one that protects your rise from unnecessary destruction. Think as you like, but behave like others. This is not surrender. This is camouflage. The world does not reward visible difference as often as people pretend. It says it admires independence, but it punishes those who challenge its illusions too openly, too early, too publicly. A man may see through the game. He may detect hypocrisy, manipulation, weakness, herd behavior, and all the soft lies society repeats to keep itself comfortable. But if he broadcasts that perception carelessly, he becomes a target before he becomes powerful enough to withstand the consequences. So keep your deeper mind private. Let your thoughts become a kingdom few are allowed to enter. In that inner kingdom, question everything. Reject false morals. Study power honestly. See people clearly. Notice what drives them, what weakens them, what controls them, what they worship, what they fear. But outwardly, move with intelligence. Dress appropriately. Speak with control. Understand norms, use them when necessary. Blend when blending serves you. The powerful do this constantly. They do not parade every unconventional thought. They do not reveal every dangerous conclusion. They know when to speak, when to nod, when to remain neutral, when to appear ordinary, and when to let others feel comfortable underestimating them. That is not cowardice. That is concealment in service of timing. A blade is most effective when hidden until the moment of use. The foolish man confuses rebellion with strength. He announces every difference. He turns every social setting into a personal manifesto. He needs to be seen as unique, radical, fearless. And because he cannot control that need, he burns bridges before he has built power. Do not do that. Let your mind stay free, but let your behavior remain strategic. Keep your private fire beneath a calm surface. Let others see what keeps them relaxed while you continue calculating beneath the mask. You do not owe the crowd full access to your thinking. You owe yourself results. That is the final protection. to remain inwardly sovereign while outwardly composed, to think without permission but move without needless friction, to hold a private edge behind a public calm. That is how men rise without being prematurely attacked. Now the circle closes. 13 laws, 13 shifts, 13 blades placed into the hands of a man who is finished being naive. Become useful before you become close. Never reveal your full hand. Enter through the side door. Mirror their world, not your own. Master selective availability. Speak less than necessary. Create mutual enemies. Never outshine the master. Make others come to you. Guard your reputation with your life. Never destroy an enemy when you can use him. Appeal to self-interest, never to mercy. Think as you like, but behave like others. This is not about becoming cruel. It is about becoming difficult to manipulate, difficult to replace, difficult to read, difficult to move. The world does not hand respect to the open, the desperate, the overly available, the emotionally exposed. It gives respect to the man who understands pressure, timing, restraint, and silent leverage. So let this be the moment something hardens inside you. No more over-explaining, no more chasing, no more leaking your plans to people who have not earned your trust. No more begging for seats at tables where your value has not yet been felt. No more confusing kindness with weakness, access with importance, or noise with power. Move colder, think deeper, speak cleaner, protect your name, study before acting, offer value before desire, and let your silence begin doing some of the work your words used to waste. If this message reached you at the right time, subscribe and stay close. There is a version of you the world has not met yet. More composed, more unreadable, more disciplined, more dangerous in the only way that truly matters, self-controlled. And if you are ready for that version to begin now, write this in the comments. I move with silence. I rise with power. Then leave this video and start watching your world differently. Because once you understand the laws beneath the surface, you stop living like prey. You start moving like the man the room cannot ignore. The powerful do not advertise their unconventional thinking. They do not parade every dangerous idea they carry. They blend into the environments they intend to dominate. They dress the way the room expects. They speak in tones the room accepts. They nod at the right moments. They let others feel comfortable, all while their real calculations continue behind closed doors, untouched, undisturbed, invisible. This is not hypocrisy. This is intelligence. The man who broadcasts every sharp thought becomes a target before he becomes a force. He attracts enemies he does not need. He creates resistance that drains his momentum. He wastes his strength defending ideas in rooms that were never prepared to understand them. And that is the mistake of the emotional man. He wants to be seen more than he wants to rise. Do not make that mistake. Let others argue loudly and collect attention. Let others expose their entire mind just to feel significant for a moment. You move differently. You move with silence. You let your conformity become camouflage. You let your public agreement become strategy. You save your real thoughts for the moments when they can create leverage, not controversy. That is mastery. To walk among them as one of them while your mind operates on a completely different level. To look ordinary while thinking with extraordinary precision. To remain unreadable in a world addicted to overexposure. That is how you enter circles that would reject you if they fully understood you too soon. That is how you survive long enough to reach positions where your mind no longer needs permission. That is how you rise high enough for your ideas to stop sounding dangerous and start sounding inevitable. Now you hold the 13 laws. You have been given what most men will never hear clearly because most men are not trained to see power. They are trained to chase approval, to explain themselves, to ask for fairness, to reveal too much, to speak too fast, to mistake access for respect, to confuse visibility with influence. But now the illusion is broken. Now the question is not whether these laws are true. The question is whether you have the discipline to live them, because knowledge without action is decoration. Wisdom without execution is performance, and performance changes nothing. You must take what you heard and forge it into habit. Study these laws until they stop feeling like advice and start feeling like instinct. Return to them until they shape your posture, your tone, your timing, your restraint, your choices, your silence. Becoming untouchable is not a mood. It is not a temporary burst of motivation. It is a construction, a private architecture built through repeated discipline, one interaction at a time. This is the real divide. Most men hear truths like these and feel inspired for one night. Then they return to old patterns by morning. They chase again. They overshare again. They seek validation again. They leak their power again. Do not be one of them. Let this be the moment you become harder to read, harder to rush, harder to manipulate, harder to replace. Let this be the moment your mind becomes colder, your speech becomes cleaner, your standards become sharper, and your presence begins to carry weight before you even open your mouth. And if something in you recognized the truth in this, leave your mark below. Write, power recognized, not for performance, for commitment. And subscribe to the channel if you are done consuming weak advice designed for weak men. Stay close if you are ready to build a mind that does not beg, a presence that does not chase, and a discipline that cannot be easily shaken. There is more ahead, and the men who keep listening, keep sharpening, keep applying, are the men who stop being ignored by the world. Your transformation has already begun. The world punishes what is visibly different before it ever rewards it. It resists what it cannot immediately classify. It attacks what threatens its comfort. You may already see through the illusion. You may already recognize the games, the masks, the silent competitions, the hidden motives beneath polite conversations. You may already think in ways that would unsettle the people around you if they heard your full mind spoken out loud. But that is why this final law matters. Your mind is your private kingdom. Guard it. Refine it. Let it question everything. Let it see clearly. Let it reject the soft lies that keep ordinary people compliant and easy to control. But when it comes to the outside world, move with precision, move with discipline, move with calculation. Behave with enough control that others never feel the need to resist you before your time has come. Do not waste energy trying to prove how different you are. Do not announce every sharp thought just to feel seen. Do not burn your future for the cheap pleasure of being publicly misunderstood. Let others argue, let others perform, let others expose themselves. You move in silence. Your calm becomes camouflage, your restraint becomes protection. Your ability to appear ordinary while thinking at a completely different level becomes one of your greatest advantages. That is how you enter rooms that would reject you if they fully understood you too early. That is how you rise without attracting unnecessary resistance. That is how you survive long enough for your mind to become power instead of just potential. Now you have the laws. The only question left is whether you are disciplined enough to live them. Because knowledge without action is decoration. Wisdom without execution is entertainment. And men who only listen but never apply stay exactly where they are. So take this seriously. Study these principles until they become instinct. Let them shape the way you speak, the way you wait, the way you observe, the way you refuse, the way you protect your energy, your name, your access, and your future. If this struck something real inside you, leave your mark below. Write, "Power recognized," and subscribe to the channel. Stay close. There is more ahead for the men who are ready to become harder, calmer, sharper, and impossible to manipulate. Your transformation has already begun. Now become what they never expected: untouchable.